So, welcome to today's live stream. Today, what we want to do, I got a request from one of the viewers, from Ilir, and he had like a pretty cool idea. I think we had opened an issue on ng-parsel, but I'm not 100% sure. So let's check ng-parsel. That should be on angularexperts.io. Yeah, so we have this project called ng-parsel, and what ng-parsel does is it basically takes some stuff from, you can run ng-parsel over your project, and you can basically convert it to a JSON representation. So you can get a JSON representation of your project there with ng-parsel, and that's super useful, especially if you want to build something like UI component libraries and you want to have like some showcase where you want to display some API. So if you something like this, for example. Also today I am using my split keyboard again. So today I'm back to the Moonlander. For those of you who don't know the Moonlander, this is the Moonlander, and I've been a big fan of it. I have it actually in black, but yeah, cannot change the color here. I'm a big fan of the Moonlander, but recently I reworked my desktop and I really came up with a clean desktop. And then once you start using the Moonlander, you have like wires all over the place. Like you have one here to connect the two pieces, then you have another one to connect it. So there's no Bluetooth version of it. And therefore I just had a really clean desk, but then all those cables around. So I started to use a Bluetooth keyboard, but now I kind of miss it a bit. The Moonlander is cool. So yeah, today we will use that. And what I wanted to say is like the ng-parsel, currently we use it for something like this. Let's say you have Angular material, and imagine you are building your own Angular material, you are building your own UI component library. And then you want to have, of course, documentation for a developer. So a developer will come to your showcase and see how can I use, for example, an autocomplete. And then probably you want to display something like API, right? This kind of stuff. And that's all stuff that you can get with ng-parsel. So ng-parsel goes over your project and spits out those kind of things, even code examples. Even this you could do with ng-parsel. Basically that, right? HTML, TypeScript. CSS probably also, but probably only inline, not external style sheets. So there are some limitations at the moment. But we got a request from Ilir, and I think what he wrote there is, didn't we open an issue for that? Not really. We didn't open an issue, but the idea is that you can get some app insights. So I would imagine that we do something like, what do we want to have? Like let's first take let's cut it around and scratch out what we want. So I would imagine that we will basically have a new command. Currently we have the parse, but hey Ilir, how is it going? So we are trying to implement your feature, or at least think about it. So yeah, we have the parse, and I would imagine that we have another command. So the parse basically converts, creates the JSON structure and also outputs the JSON structure. So that's the plain parse command. But I could imagine that maybe we have something like either stats or app insights or just insights. Something like that. I don't know which one I like more. Kind of both are a good fit. And then it's kind of the question, what do we want to spit out? So I imagine that we spit out some sort of table. And in this table we probably have, I would imagine something like this. So a components, like or here maybe a type. Whoa. Yeah, go to the right here. Type, then maybe standalone. Maybe we can have multiple of those. Then how do we call so basically non-standalone, module based. I don't know, what is the other word for non-standalone components? Module based components, or I'm actually not sure. Like, and maybe we do like a total of components. Something like that. And I would imagine that this is like, of course, one line in the table. And then we have, for example, here type. We could have component, basically everything that makes sense as standalone. So that would be component directive. And then, whoa, nice. And then pipes, something like that. What else can be standalone? Services don't matter in this, so we can have multiple of those boxes. We could also then have something for services, like provided in root, or yeah, some stuff like that. We could even have additional information, like I don't know if it makes sense to put them all together. Maybe we do like one table per thing, because we have here also the control value accessor, right? So it would be interesting to know like how many are control value accessors. But control value accessor, of course, only makes sense for the components. Doesn't make sense for directives and pipes. So maybe something like this. Then we do like, of course, another table for directive and pipes. I would imagine something like this, and that could work. So let's go ahead and see how this is all done. Let's first make sure that we are on the main branch. Let's bring over this one. That's another project I'm working on. Clear. Oh my god. Split keyboard. ng-parsel, git checkout. Do we have a master? Do we have a main? We have a main. I don't know why I always clear the console. Just because. Good. Git rocket is landed. We have the latest and greatest. So there were some recently added features. For example, we can now also have explicit methods of ng-parsel. Like, no, explicit ng-parsel is now capable of parsing explicit public methods on directives. Now I have it. So good. So we have the parser, and that's basically here the main parser, right? So I would say we start somewhere in the bin, and in bin we use something, I don't know if we use total commander or we just use commander here, and we can create multiple commands. And we have the parse command, which takes in like a lot of options. And I'm wondering if you also have to take in those options. So for sure we have one thing that we for sure have to take in is the source option, because you need a pattern to search for files. This one we could think about filtering, but you can see what we are actually parsing at the moment. So we are parsing components, services, pipes, modules, directives, harnesses, and specs. So I would imagine that We have also an init command. So the first thing that we for sure need to do is something like this. We need to go and we need to say program command. So that command, no, was it? Wait, let me quickly type the correct one. Where? Yeah, this one it was. Sorry. Now. Oh my god. You know why I haven't used the split keyboard in a while, so that's the reason why you see me like this. Okay. So what we want, we called it insights or stats. I don't know which one I like more. Let's maybe go with stats. So, and then what we do here, of course, we also want to print a welcome message. That makes sense. Creating configuration file, that's not something we want to do. So in parse, we call the parse and we merge the optional config with some defaults. So the first thing we have to take in is for sure the path. All right. That's something that we need. I think that's added here. All right, there's some option. So we get the source files. Then with the config object is Explorer. What is the Explorer? That's Cosmic Config. So Cosmic Config is basically a tool that goes up and checks for ng-parsel config. I mean, we can basically also do that, so that if you have a parcel already set up and configured, that we can just go and search for that object. Are we missing something like on the action command? Why is it here like dot action? Oh yeah, so why is it here not properly aligned? I mean, program command, it's program command, parse, option, yeah. Action, source club, okay. I think this one we could also do. And then we merge with the default. What am I missing here? Haven't I? So this one, that's the one from config object. Now, good. So maybe we should think about extracting this, like and then we basically say we have the config object, we merge with the defaults. And let's check what the default values are. So default value is we parse the component, we parse the services, we parse the pipes, everything's set to true. That's kind of cool. And then the parse, what the parse does, it basically goes through, parses the thing. We did not have to touch this logic at all because we just have that. So we need a way to we need to refactor this a bit. Yeah, so here we basically say if it's single file, write everything to a single file. Otherwise, create all the ng-parsel files. as an output. So I would kind of want to split that. So the idea would be that the parser, because now actually this is a bit wrong, the parser itself does two things. It currently parses and writes. So we would need a parser, and then we would also need some write util here. And that write util, write output files. I mean, the write output files, where is this? This is also in the parser. How do we call it? Because it's not really the util, it's more like where do we put this in the best way? Because the util shouldn't contain like the part. What I'm thinking about is like the util should be pretty generic. So the util should only write it, and it should not contain like logic like this, like how to handle the single file and stuff. And the parser itself should just parse. And we should have like a, because this is the parser, and I'm now using maybe we do. Maybe we can have like another directory, which we just call like a new directory, which is just called commands. And inside here, we have a parse.ts, right? And we export a function, which we call parse. And this function basically now orchestrates the thing that we do in the parsing. So it should here, I mean, yeah, I'm thinking if this should all be done, like the printing of the welcome message, that's kind of okay. Or not even. Maybe this has all to go inside of the parse. Let's see. Kind of would make sense that we here only handle the main stuff, like the options and so on. Thinking about the options we then pass. So I imagine inside here we would need to have the explorer. Okay, we have to take this a bit apart. So this is the explorer, and probably here we need to get some options. The options are, if we go back, do they even have a type? The source globe we don't need. So options, print welcome message. I guess this is duplicate the code fragment, yeah. Explorer search, options, okay, cool. So that's kind of like this. Then we would go back, and here we would delete that and just call parse and pass in the options. All right. Maybe we call this parse command so that this properly fits. So we have the parse command, and the parse command now takes in the options, which are of type. What are those? Those are partial. I would expect it to be partial ng-parsel options or something. Merge with defaults, what ng-parsel config. So probably on line 12 we type it like this. What? I would say partial even. then the parse we have to import that from parser.ts. Why do you want to import from parser? I mean, that's basically one up. How do I do again the parser / parser ts? Because, okay. I mean, that's kind of correct. I think that's the setup. We have to import from the JS files. Then somehow the chalk I want to have on top. Like this. Oh, I've missed my keyboard so much. It's not, it's really nice again. Merge with defaults. Is it just like, probably it's the wrong type on line 17. Yeah, there's a double point too much. Right? Options.source. Because this is probably an index signature. Yeah, so whenever you have an index signature, you kind of have to do it like this. We have to say, oh my god. I have some problem typing, yeah, this one, okay. Like the single quotes, I still should maybe configure the keyboard in another way. But we now have the parser command. So let's quickly go back and see if everything still works. So let's remove our dist. Let's go to package.json, and then we say start parse. npm run start parse. So we are parsing the stuff. ng-parsel, ng-parsel.json. That looks good. So let's probably already check out a new branch. How do we call it? Stats. So we add everything and we say this would be a refactor commit. So refactor introduce parse introduce commands, something like that. That's the first thing, but still this is not yet complete for our refactoring. So what we need to do is here the parse itself we have to refactor that, because the parse now here we have to bring that out. So we have to basically say inside here we have a function, write parsed output to disk, and that's basically, as we say, this takes in the parsed output, and the parsed output is I mean, it's actually containing all this part. So we should take away then this part here. What? Didn't I copy that? So we should bring that here. Now these write output files, That's this function. Write output files. That's the function we have to bring here. And now write output files. So we somehow have to get back here inside the parse, and we have to return basically this. So we have to take everything inside here and return something like that. Now, of course, this is not void, but haven't we generated a type for this? ng-parsel output. Yeah, no, that's just the extension of the parsel output. But we basically need like how do we call it? ng-parsel, I think that should be under the parser. Parser. We have module directive spec. Maybe a parse result. Parse. I'm not sure if I really like those model files. Do we have it here in a model file? Yeah, we have. Then let's be consistent. Sometimes I favorite, like, because we could also export it inline, but sometimes I favor like consistency. I'm really into consistency, so therefore I just keep going with that. How do we call it? Parse result model.ts. ng-parsel. Let's call it ng-parsel output. Parse output model TS. And we have component specs, basically that, but we could also use Vim macros for this, but I just feel like I'm faster like this. So we have that. Basically this one returns a ng-parsel. Which we have to import from here. So we have to clean that up, and we get back. Why do we return the config? Config we probably don't need. Config is just passed in from the outside. We don't need that. That's wrong. So this doesn't have to be there. So then, how was my shortcut to get, like, I had a shortcut here to easily get here. Wasn't it this one? No, there was something. Oh my god. I had a shortcut to basic resolve quickly here. I want to figure that out quickly because that's super handy. Oryx. How is the thing called? Moonlander configurator. Where I don't really remember. It was a shortcut. This one it's not. Yeah, I have to check it up. Check it later. But I could somehow get here and then just directly. Anyway, so we have to parse. And we say let parse output ng-parsel output. We have to import that. And then we say here basically parse out. So we assign the parse output. And then here we are basically doing, and it accepts the parse output, which is in so that's the one we need. Now, and we need the config as well. So let's first go, can I do it like this, that I just do config and then idea will, we will call configuration, or is it the options? I mean that's, yeah, we called it can I extend the method? Change right? Yeah, but now not sure if we should speak of configuration or option. Maybe we speak inside here of options, configurations. How is again the refactoring? I don't remember. Wasn't that refactoring? Configuration, maybe we go with config. Save some lines. Everybody knows what it means. So config, then inside here as well. Then the parse output, we don't use it actually at the moment, but we should, because basically we should add it to every new line. I mean, something like this, I would say so. Once again, also, how do I want to be able Ah, now I have it. Okay, good. So I want to delete that folder. Then I want to go back. Isn't there a way to... I don't know. I want to go back here. And I start parsing again. Oh my god. No, that's good. Okay. Failed to write output files. Is it somehow... Just checking something if the... No, it's good. It's good. For me, the preview was somehow stuck. So, okay, failed to write output files. Yeah. So what we need to do, if there's a config object, if we pass down the config here, right? We have to pass down the final config. Let enriched config, merged config, final config, config enriched with defaults. I mean, that's actually kind of what it is. Maybe we should extract this. This should be further refactored so that we just get like configs. So we should do something like this. Utils would be more like a new util, new file called config.util, config.helper. I mean, again, I kind of like the config helper better somehow, but since we have everything as util, I will go with config.util.ts. And the config util, that's the one that should have the explorer. Here we probably don't need the explorer, so because that's a super generic one. And we export a function where we say enrich with defaults. And then can still say here this config object, that's what we need here, and we just take all of that, put it here, and enrich with defaults. So we say ng-parsel configuration found, blah blah blah, and then we basically return this. I will imagine something like that. Else, no configuration found, CLI arguments will be used. This config source, this is basically, that should anyway go away. That's just locally at the moment, so that we have like /test spa. This is anyway just local. So let's just quickly put that here. And there we should leave like a to-do, clean this up later. Because that's the one we use for the local one at the moment. And we just return here basically everything just this. And here we should accept some configs. That would be CLI config, CLI args config. I mean, let's be super clear about that. Key, how did we, I mean, this is, I'm also not sure if this is super correct. Couldn't it also be, I think this could also be a boolean actually. Or did we just, let's just keep it string for the moment. I feel like it could also be a boolean. So we have enrich with defaults, enrich config with defaults. That's the helper now. So we come back and we say const config equals enrich config with defaults, but that's actually not the true name because it's kind of misleading. Because this function does more. It doesn't only enrich with defaults. It also checks for config. So let's see, everybody's speaking about AI, right? Let's see, for this kind of stuff, it could be useful, like for function naming. Give me a better name for this function that describes what it does. I mean, it kind of does multiple things. Load and merge config. Kind of like that. Load and merge config. So naming is still one of the hardest things in programming. Load and merge config. Good. And I saw this would be the CLI args. That's the one that is passed here. And that's the one that we pass here. Then this whole thing can go away. So we have a config, which is nice. And then we do const. I mean, we could also inline this. Right, we pass in that config. Probably it says that this is not needed. Or what is this problem? Variable is used before it's assigned. What? Ah, now it makes sense. So again, this has to be cleaned up later. Print a welcome message, take the config, do the parsed output, write it to the disk. Good. There's still one error, yes. Now it looks clean. Let's do a new line here between the chalk. This one should also go to the top. Do we have any other imports? No, that's all module imports. So, good. So then let's go to dist. Isn't it dist? We don't really have an output, that's good. So, start parsing. So this looks already good. It's parsing the files. Now, it still looks good. So that would be the next step. That's like refactor generic. Let's call this a generic parser. By the way, but is it? Do I have enough? Okay. Is it generic parser? Yeah, more like. Yeah, it's more like. Let the parser parse and nothing else, kinda. That's kind of what we do. So we let him parse. Okay, let's push that so that it's not lost. Stats. Good. Good, so that's basically the parsing. Now let's come here, and we should then also do the init command, but let's go to stats dot. Maybe we rename that. I was thinking to maybe rename it to stats dot command. Export. What is it? It is a function. So let's go back to the parse. Parse command. Those two things are the same. So we first get the config. Also here we should have the CLI args. Once we get the config, what we will do is for the moment also this. That's just for some local. I think we could pass it inside the package JSON. So here in the start parse. I mean, we are passing it. I'm not sure if this works, if this is the correct way to pass it, but this anyway guarantees that this works. I mean, we could quickly try it. Let's just go to the parser parse.ts. Let's just remove this line and let's go back here. Let's delete that. Let's go back. Let's see if that is passed correctly. I don't think so, because now the ng-parsel, yeah, it's something else. We would need to figure out why this is not correctly passed. But I think it's more like my local, it's not really an issue in prod. So again, now we take the parsed output. And now what do we do with it? So if we come here and we do console log what? Ah, stupid. Parsed output. Did I copy this wrong? Did I copy this from the other one? Parsed output. Because if I did, there's a typo. So this should be. Oh no, 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 no. Parsed output, so we have the parsed output. Now let's call our stats command. So let's go back to the bin, ng-parsel bin. Here we have somewhere stats. And let's basically delete that. And let's just do like stats command, and we pass in the CLI I think that's kind of... So options. Let's call this also CLI arcs. We should then rename all the CLI arcs. Everywhere, consistency, consistency. So that should be CLI arcs here. Isn't there like an other option? No, that's good. So cool. So we get that. We get the CLI arcs. We can basically clean that up. fs util commander path cosmic config sync. Do we even need that? We don't need the explorer here, so that can go away. Cool. Package JSON. Start parse. Then when we copy, we call it start stats, ESM ng-parsel. Start stats. So we are parsing the files, and now we should spit out like a big JSON. Yeah. So we can see the implementation and everything. Now we kind of have to bring that into a nice format that we were sketching out on the Excalibur. So maybe we have some converters. So the first thing that we need is like let's think again about it. So the first thing that we need is this. Let's focus on this. So we are interested in the component converters. So let's go source new directory, converters, new file, component. Oh, this is more fun than I thought. I didn't think that it's like that amount of refactoring and so much things. So function convert convert to component stats. I was like about consistency, but I actually like if the interface is exported here directly in this converter. Component stats, right? And then here, what do we do? Like the type is kind of clear. The type is component type. We can. Do we even need to set that? We don't need to set that. So standalone whoopee number module. I mean, how do we actually call that? Standalone components how do we call non-standalone components? Module based component. How do we call non? How do we call components that are not standalone? Hey, whoa. How do I do the hash? How do we call components that are not standalone? Module-based components, non-standalone components, something else? Let's see. Let's see what the community says. So we want to convert that to, let's call it module-based. We will have a total. We want to have the CVAs, control value accessors. And we get in like component stats, that would be ng-parsel parser ng-parsel component. So basically this one we want to pass in. So we have the component stats, and now we basically say component stats reduce. We pass in the accumulated, which is of type component stats, and the current value, that the second one should be inferred. So there's no need to pass that in, and we start with a basically this something like that. Just here we put a 0. So current value, and we return. So what do we return here? Of course we return the egg. Accumulated, and then here we say egg.total equals egg.total plus 1, right? I mean plus 1 plus plus, doesn't matter. Then we say if the current value, I don't like this name current value, if the component is CVA, yo Copilot, where are you at? Like, this would be a perfect case for you. Something is wrong with my Copilot, and I don't have it enabled, and it doesn't even bother me. I mean, for this stuff it would be cool. If it's standalone, then do this, and here we just can do a else. Module based, right? That's kind of the thing. We should write a test for that. Oh my god, this feature is getting bigger and bigger once we start testing and everything. Not sure if I can finish it, and then soon. Flutter crew, welcome to the stream. What is ng-parsel? ng-parsel basically is a open source project that I initially wrote, and the idea is that ng-parsel allows you to take an Angular code base, so you can take any kind of Angular code base that you have, and you can run ng-parsel on it, and it will spit out a JSON representation of that code base. And why is that useful? Why do we even need this? Why did we create it in the first place? So we created it in first place because sometimes you want to have some insights, some quick stats for it. That's what we are trying to implement here. But the first place why we created it is to support cases where you want to have, let's say you build a UI component library like Angular Material, like PrimeNG or something like that. And you want to display components. Then you want to basically show your developer how this component is used and what kind of API does it has. So you need to get this information from somewhere if you build something like this, like a custom showcase. And one way to get this is, or what I've seen a lot, is TypeDoc. I don't know if they have also an other page. Yeah, TypeDoc. That's something that many people use, but I found it extremely hard to work with TypeDoc, especially because you do not really have like type safety and you sometimes don't know where stuff is. It's very generic. It's not optimized for Angular, right? It's for every use case. And then it's sometimes very hard to access the correct properties and understand the data structure. And with ng-parsel you can. So let's say you have, for example, inside here with a test spa. That's a normal Angular spa. And we have some stuff like, for example, app, we have foo component, we have some home component, we have some app component. And if you run ng-parsel, you can configure it in a different way. It will spit out if it's not broken. Let me quickly show you how the output looks like. Let's parse it. So we parse it and we end up with an ng-parsel JSON file. And you can see now we have a type that is component. That's the app component. The file path is this. The selector of that is app root. It's not standalone. This is the template. It's not a CVA like a control value accessor. It has this style. This is the implementation. Inputs, outputs, and methods public explicit. And with that kind of data, you can then build like exactly the things, the API, for example. You can then also see, for example, here we have the foo component, which is also not standalone, but it uses some styles. And here you have, okay, it has an input, which is my value. The type is a string. And here is the whole field, which is a setter at the moment, and so on. It even works with the new stuff, like the new input-output based stuff. Where do we have that? I'm not sure if I have an example. And also the specs get out there. So with that you can basically build something like this, right? Something like this. You could do that. Yeah, and now start stats. So now we should get a JSON. No, we don't, because we do not call it. So we say we parse the output, but then we should now call our converter. How did we call the method here? Converter component stats. This should be tested then, of course. And we pass in the parsed output. Let's console log that. What is the problem? Void. Makes sense. And here we should probably type that, because this will, maybe we prefix, because everything's prefixed with ng-parsel. ng-parsel component stats. Start stats. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, this is do we even get here? Parsed output. Yeah. Now we are parsing. So we have 3 total components. This is for sure wrong, because either we have module based or standalone, but the CVA kinda, that could be correct, yeah. But something is wrong here. Yeah. That's usually why we test, right? This would be super case for going test driven. Like I usually don't do test driven, but this would be a good case for test driven. Now we see standalone module based to 0 control value accessors inside there, 2 module based components, 1 standalone component. It's kind of cool. Now of course, let's go ahead and commit that. That was probably not the best commit message. Whatever. So good, we have the feature stats. Now, yeah, we should go ahead and test that. I'm not sure. I have like 15 to 20 minutes left. I'm not sure if I want to spend that on testing. I want to first do something a bit more interesting, and I want to see like how do we output that. npm.js, I would say in some sort of table. We could also write it to a JSON in the end if we want. Table. Ooh, that looks nice. Yeah, I would expect something npm install table. So import table, data. Okay. I think we can work with that. So we install table. If you do that, we have to do a couple of other things. We cannot just only do that, because table now would be where is our ng-parsel? Yeah. We are not. No, then it's good. Table is a dependency, because this is then directly the. I was thinking, because usually if you have an Angular workspace, you have like a multi-project workspace, and then in the libs you have a separate package JSON for the library, but here it's all in one. So then what we can do inside our stats, it's now the question. So we get that output, and we would go like const component stats, and what we want to do is maybe a function print component. We could also think about having this in a dedicated way, like source printer, like new directory, CLI. Maybe it's even a util. No, the util should be more generic. Like this usually should be very generic. Let's for the moment just do it here inside stats. So print component stats. What we take here is we take the ng-parsel component stats. Now, what we do here is table, import table from table, of course. It still feels somehow like this should be more the orchestrating part, and I guess there's always this fine line between how many files do you create and how many. I feel a bit that maybe this should be in a dedicated folder. So we say const data table header. So the table header would be like what do we have? Standalone, module based, CVA, control value accessor, and total. That would be the table header. So then we need to map yeah, this has to go inside a dedicated file. Into a dedicated file. I feel this has to go there because now we need to convert it further. Like, this is super generic. Convert to component stats. So that's just the converter there. But maybe we need another one. We need it to the table output format. Like, there's a lot of conversion going on. I don't know if this one could directly convert it to the table output, but I still feel that this could be like useful. And I would want to have it like more generic, because let's say we want to write the stats to a JSON file, then this would make sense. So we need some sort of other converter, but let's quickly do it in Light. So let's just say we have a function, and this function is called convert components convert to table data. We also have to find another name then. But something like this, and you get this component stats const table data. That would be like one array, and then we go to the component stats. Is it actually component stats is not an array? We don't need this. Sorry. Maybe call this just, what am I doing? Table data, or just data? No, let's call it table data. So table data is a two-dimensional array, and what we have inside here is like standalone and then we do component stats dot module based component stats dot CVA component stats dot total. That's the table data. Now we do console.log table data. Now we still have to call that, bring component stats, right? And now That should work actually. That should work. Hopefully. So we have one standalone, 2 module based, 0 control value accessors, and 3 total components. Maybe we should then also do like, before we print that, we should do like a console log, maybe chalk.blue. Let's go with blue. And maybe we print like, where is the equal? Like some of those. Don't we have chalk? How is chalk imported? Do we use the ESM or import chalk from chalk? Can I also import blue from chalk? That would be way better. No. And let's go with chalk with blue. And here we call it, maybe we remove this one. Whoa. Let's just make sure. What I want to do. Oh God. Isn't it? Okay, I really have to. Anyway, so I want to take this. What am I typing here? I'm pressing the wrong key. So again, so I want to take this, and then I want to take everything till here, and I want to just make sure that there are the exact amount of characters in there. Let's just do it like this. Now. I don't know how this will look like. Components. I feel like this has to be way longer. Almost double the distance. Something like this. And then we basically have the basic one. And of course we need to test it. The parser. I'm still not sure if we go with stats or insights. Yeah, now it's a bit too long. I would want it to have the exact same length, because this one shouldn't be like, they should always be the same. So I feel like this. So we took away 4. I would imagine something like this, unless table does offer like some nicer options to display some titles. Yeah, we could still configure the lines and stuff. But I feel maybe this one could be cool. Const data. How does he know? Ooh, you can even do like config and spanning cells. Yeah, we could play around with that. To have it like this. That would probably make more sense. Like to have it like this. And we say those are the empty ones, right? Components, and then what we pass in here, that would mean we do not these. We would need to have some table config, which would generate here. Table config, and the table config would be something like this. Basically spanning cells, so it would be 4. Then call 0 row 2. Is that already enough? Table user config. The config has column. Alignment center, spanning cells. Maybe, is it enough if I just do columns, alignment center, I basically want to have only the first one centered. Just want to have like maybe I also need spanning cells. Spanning cells. No. Table config. Columns alignment spanning cells. It's not assignable base user config. Type alignment string is not assignable to type. Okay. I mean, what are you expecting? Table user config. This table user config has like a header. What is the header? I mean, what is header? Okay, because that's what I want. Do they have an example here of config header configuration? The header configuration inherits most of the content string, the header content. Here we have it. So config would be like this, header. So then we probably don't need this here. And header will be alignment center, and the text, that's just like content, will be and what is it here? It's just an object. It's not like config column default header. That should actually work. So let's quickly do this as any, so the TypeScript is happy. And then let's see if we get the correct stats with a header. Yeah, so that's nice. And that's, we are not yet finished. We would need to do the same for directives. We would need to do the same. We would still need to do some testing and so on. But unfortunately, the time is up for the stream. Like, we are already, how long? 1.5 hours in. So yeah, that's kind of it for today. But it was fun. It is fun to implement this. I want to finish this, want to clean it up properly and have ng-parsel in a pretty nice shape, because I think it's a cool project. I also think it's pretty cool that it's easy to extend. So that's usually a good sign for a project. So yeah, so then thanks everybody for joining, and wish you a great rest of the weekend, which is not long anymore, and then a great start into the next week. Hope to see you soon, and see ya. Bye bye.